Have you ever witnessed a moment that made the entire room go silent, where arrogance and mockery instantly turned into shame? Well, that's exactly what happened one evening inside one of the city's most luxurious five-star hotels. And tonight, I want to take you right into that scene, because what happened there didn't just shock the guests, it changed lives. It all began on a rainy evening, the kind of night where the city lights reflected beautifully on the wet pavement, and the lobby of the Regal Grand Hotel sparkled with golden chandeliers and polished marble floors. This was no ordinary hotel, it was a place where only the wealthy, the powerful, and the glamorous dared to walk in. The staff was trained to perfection, every smile rehearsed, every gesture calculated to make the rich feel richer. But on that evening, the revolving doors spun open, and in walked someone who didn't belong. At least, that's what everyone thought. He was an older man, perhaps in his late 50s. His clothes were worn out, an old, faded jacket clung to his shoulders, and his shoes looked like they had seen better days. His hair was unkempt, his face tired, and in his hands he carried a small duffel bag that looked almost empty. Compared to the women in glittering gowns and the men in tailored suits around him, he stood out like a shadow in the middle of bright lights. The moment he stepped onto the glossy marble floor, whispers began. A young couple near the reception desk snickered. A group of businessmen raised their brows and exchanged knowing glances. Even some of the staff couldn't hide their disdain. Did he take a wrong turn? One of the receptionists whispered to her colleague. Maybe he's here to ask for directions. He can't possibly afford this place, another replied with a smirk. The man walked slowly, as if each step carried the weight of years of hardship. Yet, his eyes held something that nobody noticed right away. Calmness, a quiet dignity, the kind you only see in people who have nothing left to prove. He approached the front desk. The young receptionist behind it forced a polite smile, though her tone betrayed her condescension. "Good evening, sir. Can I help you?" "Yes," the man said in a steady voice. "I have a reservation. The name is David Collins." The receptionist froze for a moment, as did several others who overheard. Some of the guests nearby chuckled openly. "A reservation," she repeated, her voice almost mocking. "Sir, this is the Regal Grand Hotel. Are you sure you're in the right place?" David simply nodded. He didn't flinch, didn't argue, just looked her straight in the eye. "Yes, I booked a room here." The receptionist hesitated before typing the name into the computer. Her smirk faded slightly when the system confirmed it. Indeed, there was a reservation under the name David Collins, Executive Suite, fully paid in advance. The whispers grew louder. People leaned in, curious now. How could this shabby man possibly afford the most expensive suite in the hotel? One of the businessmen muttered under his breath, loud enough for others to hear, probably some clerical mistake. Maybe he saved up for years just for one night here. Poor fellow, trying to live a dream. Laughter rippled across the lobby. David heard it, of course. Everyone knew he did, but he didn't react. He simply waited patiently as the receptionist, now visibly uncomfortable, handed him the room key. "Your suite is on the 25th floor, Mr. Collins. Enjoy your stay," she said, her voice shaky. David nodded, took the key, and walked toward the elevators. His footsteps echoed in the silent lobby, every eye following him. To most of them, he was just a poor man out of place, someone who didn't belong in their glittering world. But what none of them knew was that David Collins was about to shatter every assumption they had about him. And that night, every single person in that hotel would learn a lesson they'd never forget. The night passed slowly, but not for the guests at the Regal Grand Hotel. Many of them couldn't stop whispering about the poor guest who had checked into the executive suite. The thought of a shabby-looking man sleeping on silk sheets and marble floors irritated some, amused others, and intrigued everyone. Meanwhile, inside the suite on the 25th floor, David Collins sat by the window, gazing out at the glittering city skyline. The room was extravagant, floor-to-ceiling windows, velvet curtains, chandeliers, and a king-sized bed that looked more like a throne than a place to sleep. But David didn't seem impressed. He sat quietly, lost in thought, his hands resting on the small duffel bag he had brought with him. The following morning, the hotel prepared for a grand charity gala. It was one of the biggest events of the year, hosted in the massive ballroom downstairs. Celebrities, business tycoons, and politicians were expected. The air buzzed with excitement, and the staff worked tirelessly to ensure perfection. As the guests arrived in glittering gowns and designer suits, David walked into the ballroom too. His appearance hadn't changed. He still wore the same worn jacket and tired shoes. And just like the night before, people stared. Some laughed, others rolled their eyes. Unbelievable, a woman whispered to her friend. How did security even let him in here? Maybe he's someone's driver, another chuckled. No, he's the man in the suite upstairs. Can you believe it? The laughter spread again. People mocked his clothes, his shoes, even the way he walked. But David didn't respond. He simply took a seat in a quiet corner, his calm gaze surveying the